Most people grow up believing a very simple story about money. That story sounds reasonable. It sounds logical. And because it sounds logical, almost no one questions it. The story goes like this. If you earn more money, your life will automatically improve. Your stress will go down. Your problems will shrink. Your sense of security will grow. And on the surface, this seems true. After all, money solves practical problems. It pays bills. It buys comfort. It creates options. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people discover too late. Earning more money does not remove financial problems. It only changes the size and shape of them. When income increases without a change in mindset, behavior stays the same. The numbers get bigger, but the patterns don't. This is why so many people quietly feel confused when they start earning more. They reach a salary they once dreamed of. Yet the relief they expected never fully arrives. The pressure is still there, the anxiety is still there, and sometimes it's even worse, because now there's more to lose. What most people experience isn't financial freedom, it's financial expansion. As income grows, life expands to meet it. A slightly better neighborhood, a nicer car, more subscriptions, more responsibilities, more expectations. None of these things are wrong by themselves, but together they create something dangerous: fragile comfort. Fragile comfort feels good, but it's expensive to maintain. And the higher the income, the more fragile that comfort becomes. This is the moment where many people get trapped. Instead of using higher income to build stability, margin, and freedom, they use it to upgrade their lifestyle just enough to feel successful, but not enough to feel secure. Psychologists call this lifestyle inflation. But at its core, it's not a money issue. It's an identity issue. People don't suddenly become disciplined when they earn more. They don't automatically develop patience, long-term thinking, or emotional control. They simply become a higher-paid version of who they already were. If someone was impulsive with money before, they're impulsive with more zeros. If someone avoided discomfort before, they now avoid it in more expensive ways. If someone tied their self-worth to appearances before, they now have a larger budget to prove something. This is why raises often feel exciting at first and strangely normal a few months later. The human brain adapts quickly. What once felt like abundance becomes baseline, and once something becomes baseline, it stops feeling like progress. This adaptation creates a dangerous illusion that the solution is always more. More income, more growth, more upgrades. But without changing the way money is used, more income doesn't create wealth. It creates dependency. Dependency on a certain paycheck, dependency on a certain lifestyle, dependency on constant performance. And the moment income slows, stress returns, sometimes stronger than before. This is why so many high earners secretly feel trapped. They're not poor, but they're not free either. They earn well, but they can't step away. They look successful, but they feel replaceable. They make more, but they don't feel rich, because richness is not an income level. It's a psychological state. And that state is built not by earning more, but by learning how to contain, control, and direct money intentionally. Until that shift happens, income will always feel like it's running through your fingers, no matter how much flows in. At some point, many people reach an income level they once thought would change everything. It might be $50,000 a year. For others, it's six figures. For some, it's even more. And when they reach it, there's a moment of pride, a quiet sense of, I made it. But that feeling doesn't last, because very quickly, a strange realization sets in. Life looks better on the outside, but on the inside, nothing feels fundamentally different. The bills are bigger, the responsibilities are heavier, the expectations are higher. And slowly, almost invisibly, a new kind of fear appears. The fear of losing what you've built. This is where the confusion begins. People assume that high income and wealth are the same thing. They're not. High income is what comes in. Wealth is what remains. Wealth is margin. It's flexibility. It's the ability to say no. You can earn a lot of money and still have no time, no peace, no control. You can earn a lot and still feel dependent on a paycheck, a client, or a job you can't walk away from. That's not wealth. That's high-risk living. True wealth is not loud, it's quiet. It doesn't announce itself with upgrades and status symbols. It shows up as calm. Calm during uncertainty, calm during slow months, calm when things don't go according to plan. Most high earners never experience this calm because their income is doing all the work. Every month, money comes in, and every month, money goes out just as fast. There's no buffer, no margin, no room to breathe. The problem isn't that they earn too little, it's that they've structured their lives so income must keep flowing at the same pace or everything collapses. This creates a psychological trap. When income becomes the only thing holding your life together, you stop thinking long term. You stop making patient decisions. You stop taking thoughtful risks. You start protecting what you have instead of building something better. This is why many people earning good money feel strangely conservative with their choices. They don't experiment. They don't slow down. They don't step back to redesign their life because they can't afford disruption. Ironically, the more they earn, the harder it becomes to change. Wealth works differently. Wealth is built by separating survival from income. When your basic security isn't tied to your next paycheck, your mind changes. You think clearer. You decide slower. You choose better. Wealth gives you time to think instead of forcing you to react. This is why people who truly understand money don't obsess over income alone. They focus on how long they could survive without earning, how many options they have, how much control they've built into their life. They understand that money's real power isn't spending, it's distance. Distance from desperation, distance from bad decisions, distance from pressure-driven choices. High income without distance is fragile. One change, one mistake, one disruption, and everything feels threatened. Wealth creates distance, and distance creates freedom. This is the point where many people feel uncomfortable because it challenges the cultural narrative they were taught. The culture says, earn more, spend better, upgrade life. Wealth says, earn intentionally, spend deliberately, protect margin. One path looks successful, the other actually is. Until this distinction is understood, people will keep chasing income, believing wealth is just one raise away, and they'll never understand why it still doesn't feel like enough. To understand why earning more money doesn't make most people rich, you have to understand how the human brain reacts to money. Not logically, emotionally. Most people believe they make financial decisions consciously. In reality, most decisions around money are driven by emotion, habit, and conditioning, and modern society is designed to exploit that. From the moment income increases, a quiet message appears everywhere. You deserve more. You worked hard. You earned it. Upgrade your life. On the surface, this sounds harmless, even healthy, but psychologically, this message creates a powerful loop. Money comes in. Spending releases dopamine. Dopamine feels like reward. The brain learns earning equals consumption. Over time, this association becomes automatic. The problem is that dopamine doesn't create satisfaction. It creates craving. Every purchase delivers a brief emotional lift. Then the feeling fades, and once it fades, the brain looks for the next hit. This is why consumption escalates. What once felt like a luxury becomes normal. What once felt exciting becomes expected. And what once felt optional becomes necessary. This isn't because people are weak. It's because the brain adapts faster than income grows. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. The tendency to return to a baseline level of satisfaction regardless of improvements in external conditions. In simple terms, your brain gets used to better things very quickly. So when income rises, satisfaction doesn't rise with it. Expectations do. This creates a dangerous illusion. People believe they're chasing a better life, when in reality, they're chasing the maintenance of their current emotional state. And the higher the income, the more expensive that maintenance becomes. This is why many people feel more pressure after they earn more, not less. They've built a life that requires constant financial input just to feel normal. The real cost isn't the money, it's the loss of choice. When consumption becomes automatic, money stops being a tool and starts being a leash. People can't slow down, they can't step back, they can't afford mistakes. Every decision becomes reactive. And because consumption is socially rewarded, the trap is invisible. No one questions someone who upgrades their car after a raise. No one questions nicer vacations or better apartments. But very few people ask the deeper question: is this purchase increasing freedom or decreasing it? Most consumption reduces future flexibility. It locks money into fixed costs. It raises the minimum income required to feel okay. It quietly increases dependence. This is why earning more money often increases anxiety. There's more to protect, more to lose, more that depends on things continuing exactly as they are. Money was supposed to create security. Instead, it creates fragility. Wealthy thinkers understand this difference intuitively. They don't see money as a reward system. They see it as an energy system, where money flows determines what grows. If money flows primarily into consumption, consumption grows, and so does dependence. If money flows into margin, flexibility grows, and so does control. This is why real wealth often looks boring, less visible, less dramatic, less impressive. But internally, it feels powerful, because instead of money controlling emotions, emotions are controlled around money. Until that shift happens, earning more will always feel like running faster on the same treadmill. More effort, more speed, same place. Chapter 4. Why enough never feels like enough. One of the most confusing moments in a person's financial life happens after they start earning more. On paper, things look better. The income is higher. The lifestyle is more comfortable. The struggle that once dominated their thinking has eased. And yet, something feels off. Instead of relief, there is restlessness. Instead of satisfaction, there is pressure. Instead of security, there is a quiet sense of chasing. This is the moment many people don't know how to explain. They tell themselves they should feel grateful. They remind themselves how far they've come. But internally, the feeling remains, why doesn't this feel like enough? The answer has very little to do with money itself. It has everything to do with how the human mind defines success. Most people believe they measure their progress by looking backward. In reality, they measure it by looking sideways. They compare, not consciously, not deliberately, but constantly. When someone earns less, they compare themselves to people who earn a little less. When they earn more, they compare themselves to people just above them. As income increases, the comparison group shifts upward. And because the comparison group shifts, satisfaction never settles. There is always another level, another benchmark, another version of life that looks just slightly better. This creates a psychological treadmill. No matter how fast you move, the distance stays the same. The problem is not ambition. The problem is external reference points. When success is defined by how you rank against others, enough becomes impossible. There is no finish line. There is only the next person ahead of you. This is why people can double their income and still feel behind. Their reference point has moved faster than their reality. Over time, this creates emotional pressure. People begin making financial decisions not based on what they need, but on what feels required to maintain their position. They don't want to fall behind. They don't want to downgrade. They don't want to explain why they slowed down. So they stretch. A little more spending, a little more obligation, a little less margin. Not because they're irresponsible, but because identity is involved. Income becomes part of how they see themselves. And once money becomes identity, fear enters the picture. Fear of slipping, fear of being exposed, fear of no longer keeping up. This fear quietly drives behavior. People keep working jobs they don't enjoy. They keep businesses running that drain them. They keep lifestyles that require constant effort. Not because they want more, but because they're afraid of less. This is the moment where money stops being a tool and starts being a measurement of worth. And when money measures worth, there is never enough of it. Wealthy individuals understand something most people don't. They understand that enough must be decided in advance. Not emotionally, not socially, but intentionally. They ask different questions. How much time do I want control over? How much stress am I willing to tolerate? How dependent do I want to be on constant income? These questions create internal boundaries, and boundaries are what protect wealth. Without boundaries, income expands outward. With boundaries, income creates stability. This is why real wealth often looks underwhelming from the outside. It doesn't chase admiration. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't compete. It opts out. And opting out is uncomfortable in a culture built on comparison. Choosing calm over applause feels like falling behind, until you realize how rare calm actually is. Most people never reach this realization. They assume dissatisfaction means they need to earn more. In reality, dissatisfaction often means they've never defined what success actually looks like for them. Until enough is defined internally, no amount of money will ever feel like it arrives, because you can't reach a destination you've never chosen. Chapter 5, Identity, the Invisible Ceiling on Wealth. At some point in life, many people reach a confusing plateau. They are doing the right things. They are earning more than they used to. They are working harder, learning more, and pushing forward. And yet, something feels capped. No matter how much effort they put in, progress slows. Money comes in, but it doesn't seem to stay. Freedom feels close, but never fully reachable. This is the moment when most people look outward for explanations. They blame the economy. They blame their industry. They blame circumstances, timing, or bad luck. But the real limit is rarely external. It's internal. It's identity. People do not rise to the level of their goals. They fall to the level of who they believe they are. This belief doesn't live in words. It lives in behavior. Someone may consciously say they want wealth, while subconsciously believing that money is unstable, temporary, or dangerous. They may say they want freedom, but feel deeply uncomfortable when income isn't predictable. They may say they want control, but avoid decisions that require patience or uncertainty. This creates quiet self-sabotage. Not dramatic failure, not obvious mistakes, but small, repeated choices that pull them back to familiar ground. Extra income gets spent instead of protected. Savings feel uncomfortable, so they shrink. Opportunities that require risk feel not right, so they're avoided. This isn't lack of intelligence, it's lack of identity alignment. Most people were never taught to see themselves as owners of systems. They were taught to see themselves as earners. Earn the money, spend the money, repeat the cycle. So even when income increases, the internal operating system stays the same. Money comes in, but the mind still treats it as something to consume, not direct. This is why many people secretly feel anxious when they earn more. More income means more responsibility, more decisions, more chances to get it wrong. Without an identity that can handle money calmly, wealth feels overwhelming. This is why sudden wealth often disappears. Not because people are careless, but because their internal identity was never designed to hold it. Wealth requires a different self-image. It requires seeing yourself as someone who allocates instead of reacts, plans instead of consumes, thinks in years instead of pay periods. This shift is deeply psychological. It happens when someone stops asking, "How much can I earn?" and starts asking, "How do I want my life to feel?" That question reframes money completely. Money stops being proof of success. It becomes a tool for stability. Wealthy thinkers don't obsess over maximizing income. They obsess over reducing fragility. They build buffers. They protect margin. They design lives that don't collapse when income fluctuates. This kind of thinking feels boring in a culture obsessed with growth and visibility. But boring is stable, and stability is what allows wealth to compound quietly. The hardest part of this identity shift is letting go of external validation, letting go of looking successful, letting go of competing, letting go of explaining your choices to people who don't share your values. Because real wealth often looks like restraint. It looks like slowing down when you could accelerate. It looks like saying no when you could say yes. It looks like choosing enough instead of chasing more. At first, this feels like loss, but over time, it feels like control. And control is the foundation of wealth. When identity changes, money follows naturally. Not because income explodes overnight, but because behavior finally supports long-term freedom. This is the invisible ceiling most people never see. And the moment it lifts, money stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you command. Chapter 6. What actually creates wealth? After everything you've heard so far, one idea should now be very clear. Wealth is not an event. It is not a sudden increase in income, and it is not the result of one smart decision. Wealth is the outcome of how a person behaves consistently when no one is watching. Most people misunderstand this because they've been trained to think in outcomes instead of systems. They focus on how much they earn this year. They focus on promotions, raises, and visible progress. They focus on moments that look like success. But money doesn't respond to moments. Money responds to patterns. The same income placed into different lives produces completely different results. In one life, it creates freedom. In another, it creates anxiety. In another, it disappears entirely. The difference is not intelligence, it's emotional discipline. Real wealth begins at the moment money stops controlling your nervous system, when an unexpected expense no longer creates panic, when income fluctuation no longer creates fear, when comparison no longer creates urgency. This level of calm doesn't come from earning more, it comes from structure. Wealthy people structure their lives to absorb pressure. They don't design their lives around maximum income. They design their lives around maximum resilience. Resilience means margin. Margin means having room to slow down, room to think, room to make decisions without urgency. Most people do the opposite. They optimize their lives for speed. They increase income but remove buffers. They raise their standard of living but lower their flexibility. They trade stability for appearance. At first, this feels like progress, but over time, it creates fragility, and fragile systems collapse under stress. Wealth avoids collapse because it expects stress. It assumes things will change, it assumes income will fluctuate, it assumes mistakes will happen, and it plans accordingly. This is why wealth grows quietly, not through dramatic moves, but through boring consistency, through spending less than you could, through saving when it feels unnecessary, through reinvesting instead of rewarding yourself immediately. These behaviors don't feel exciting. They don't feel impressive. They don't get attention, but attention is not the goal. Control is. The real reward of wealth is not luxury. It's optionality. The option to walk away, option to pause, the option to say no without fear. This is why wealthy people make different decisions. They negotiate differently, they work differently, they take risks more calmly. Not because they are fearless, but because failure doesn't threaten their survival. Most people never experience this freedom because they confuse income with security. Income feels safe, but income can disappear. Wealth is what remains when income slows, and wealth is built slowly, intentionally, and patiently. This requires emotional maturity, the ability to delay gratification, the ability to tolerate boredom, the ability to resist comparison. In a culture obsessed with speed and visibility, these traits feel almost rebellious, but they are powerful. Over time, wealth compounds quietly, stress decreases, decision-making improves, life becomes lighter. Money stops being the central focus. And that's the paradox. The people who build the most wealth are rarely obsessed with money. They are obsessed with freedom, stability, and time. They understand that money is not the point. Money is the system that supports the point. This is why earning more money doesn't make most people rich, because wealth is not created by earning alone. It's created by restraint, patience, structure, and emotional control, applied consistently over long periods of time. Once this is understood, money stops being something you chase. It becomes something you use deliberately, and that is the moment real wealth finally begins. This audiobook teaches one powerful truth that changes everything. Earning more money does not create wealth unless your mindset, behavior, and identity evolve with it. Because real wealth is not about income, but about control, margin, and emotional stability. And the moment you stop treating money as a reward and start using it as a tool, your life begins to feel lighter and more intentional. As you learn that lifestyle growth without structure creates pressure, that comparison quietly steals satisfaction, that enough must be defined internally, and that wealth grows when reactions slow down and decisions become patient, disciplined, and long-term. Because money amplifies who you already are, not who you wish to be. And when you shift your identity from consumer to owner, from earner to allocator, from urgency to clarity, money starts working for you instead of controlling you, creating freedom through boring but powerful habits like restraint, consistency, and emotional control. And if this audiobook helped you feel hopeful about money, success, in your future, stay with this series, subscribe, and continue listening, because the next chapters are not about chasing more, but about building a calm, resilient, and truly wealthy life that finally feels secure and free.